of back to school season. I call today's talk the Principal's Office. But it's spelled with a P-L-E-S. Divine Principal, the Principal's Office. We must go to the Principal's office, and when we try to avoid the Principal's office, we become unhappy. See, here's the thing. I can say that I don't like the principal. I can try to skirt around the principal. I can do all of that. But the principle still exists. It's the same as the law. The law still exists. The law is always going to be, no matter what. I found this wonderful book yesterday online called The Unity Principles. And it's written by a man who's not affiliated with Unity. You can go online and get it. It's a PDF. Renford is his name, R-E-N-F-O-R-D. And I was looking, because I just Googled Unity and Principles, or the Unity, I Googled Unity Principles. And this man, I so enjoyed what he had to say, because he was saying that he has studied the 12 universal principles, the 13 universal principles, come on in. You know, there's some say there's 20 universal principles, he feels there's 13, and that he can't find a difference between what Unity claims to be its principles and the universal principles. He has studied and studied and studied, and he said he would never have written any of this down on paper if he could find even a single difference between what the Fillmores and Emily Cady laid down than any of the universal principles he has studied. And I enjoyed that. Now, one of the things he wrote himself at the beginning of the book is oneness conceived, duality perceived. And he says, it is in the conscious mind we learn to discriminate, to carefully pull apart, analyze. Wow, we're having fun. It is in the conscious mind we learn to discriminate, to carefully, it's right back behind me, to carefully pull apart, analyze, and to differentiate. Each race is proud to set itself above and apart, our cultures, customs, our passions, and our art. Our mindset is to argue over what we think is better. Each thinks his traditions come from God to the letter. Individual responsibility is an indispensable prerequisite, expressing individuality just to be different, inadequate. We spend our lives in an effort to distinguish our name. In the eyes of the world, we seek approval and avoid blame. In the material world and in all forms of life, we analyze, we classify, discuss at length, and in the end, categorize. We are concerned with religious division and disharmony, but we continue to build walls around our philosophy. We are concerned with how each is unique or different and ignore the truth in each, the laws invariant. The atom in the vast universe we wish to know have in common the same structure to pull to and fro, entangled and diluted by what we think is reality, unable to imagine the whole, we fail to see the unity. And Renford wrote that. And I really enjoyed that a lot, because I say, oh, I identify with it. I see my struggle. And what I've always appreciated about Unity from the day I came into it is that Unity never set out to be a denomination. Unity never set out to be a separate religion from others. In the beginning, and for those of you who don't know, Unity met like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sundays. They said, the Fillmore said, come on over to us after you have gone to your religion of choice. Come on over and meet with us, and we'll figure out how to enhance your love of God, your love of Jesus. I mean, it's certainly within the Christian realm, although many study Unity principles. And I have always been attracted to Unity principles because they are universal, because they seek for all to be free, for all to go within. They seek for that. And so once people, Charles Fillmore gave the people what they wanted when they finally said, we want this to be our church. We want this to be our study home, because we find this gives us what we need. This gives us the health that we have sought, the joy that we have sought, the harmony that we have sought. And let's face it, back in the 1800s when New Thought began, it was life and death for many, many people, many of our antecedents in New Thought. It was live or die at that point. It wasn't about, as I said in class the other night, getting a new car. It wasn't about getting a relationship. It wasn't about getting a new house or some cash. It was, I need to figure out how to regenerate my cells. I need to find out how cells can be regenerated so that I can live a while longer in this body. Which is a funny thing considering in traditional religion, everybody's talking about going to heaven one day, but as Eric Butterworth said, nobody's in a hurry to get there. So it tells me we do want to live a great life while we are here. We really do want to live a great life. We want to find life worth living and worth living well. And the only way to do that is to stay in principle. Because you see, every time I hate myself or hate you, I find, oh, I want to die a little bit. I want to run. I want to escape. It hurts too much. I'm afraid. And because in my temper tantrum, the quality of life isn't high enough. Now, if I'm willing to use universal principle and say, only love can be here right now. So what decisions do I make with love? And some of you know, we've been having some issues here at Unity Center. Some of you know about them, some of you don't. I'm not here to criticize anybody today. I went out of principle. I've gone out of principle in the past couple of years. And I developed a special relationship with some people. A very special relationship. And in that specialness, I became special, and I forgot my function. I forgot my function as the minister of Unity Center. I forgot my function, which is to always place God first rather than my fun first. To place God first rather than my relationship first. To place God first before I feel sorry for someone. To place God, to never see anyone as broken or needing to be fixed. That is my responsibility. In case you don't know, I've never, ever to see any of you as broken or needing to be fixed. And you don't want me to. As much as it is to go to, as nice as it seems, to go to someone and have them say, oh, you poor thing. Oh, you poor thing. You really don't want that from me. And unfortunately, I did that with some people. I did that, and things began to fall apart here. And they didn't break away completely because I kept praying, I kept praying, I kept praying. And when I no longer saw people as broken, they got mad at me. They began to get frustrated, and they began to seek solace elsewhere. And the solace is in finding a way to be comfortable in your discomfort. In a way to stay still the poor victim of the world. And what we teach here is we're not the victim of the world. We're not the victim of ourselves. We've never, ever been a victim. We've just been in pain. We've just been confused. We've tried to step out of principle in order to satisfy our senses, as Charles Fillmore says, as all my New Thought teachers have always said. When I'm trying to satisfy the sense consciousness or my egoic consciousness, I'm always going to end up dissatisfied. I will get moments of bliss. I will get moments of joy, but I will not get any long-term satisfaction or confidence. Because, see, the thing is, if I place you as the source of my good, and you change your mind about the good that we agreed on, I'm bereft. My Lord has been taken away from me. And what am I going to do? What I loved about Unity when I came into it, same with 12-step healing, with all of that, what I found out was the source of my good is within me. The source of my good is always within me, and it is God's nature to say yes. It is always God's nature to say yes. So, if it is God's nature to say yes, what is it then when somebody says no to you? What is that about? Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's still saying yes. It's saying, yes, you can have it, but I'm not the one to give it to you. I'm not the resource of your source for this particular desire you have. Yes, you can have it. And sometimes we're just barking up the wrong tree in order to maintain our misery. We keep looking to somehow find a way to mask our anger, mask our resentment. Some of us become walking affirmations. They call those unitics. That's what they call them. You know, they're just, everything's an all is good, all is love, God is good all the time. You just see the boiling underneath. Because they haven't dealt with, they haven't really embraced the concepts of God. They embrace the idea, but not the practice. Not the true practice, and not the principle. As little children, and most of us are somewhere in that, we're little, when push comes to shove, we revert back to our little children who still want. We're still looking for that God to take care of us. And we're not realizing God is not a human being. And therefore God is taking care of us. When I came into Unity and I found out that all the wisdom that is in me, that doesn't mean I instantly was willing to practice it, or even several moments throughout the day I'm willing to practice it. But when I found out that God is wisdom itself, and all of that wisdom is within me, that means that I don't have to be dependent on, if you're not available, you, dear personality, that doesn't mean there's an absence of wisdom. And if you're not in the mood to show me love in the way I want to experience it, that doesn't mean there's an absence of love. And because my wallet doesn't have as much cash in it as I would like to see, or my stock market account, or my bank account, doesn't mean there's not an abundance available to me. In my healing years, and it's been several now, I have discovered that often some of my loneliest weekends have been the most productive, have been the most revelatory for me. In New York, if I was off on a Saturday night, it was like just about everybody I knew worked. And I spent lonely times. And I had some of the most amazing healings. I learned how to have fun with myself. I remember I used to live in Midtown Manhattan, and I remember once getting takeout from Chinatown. I took the subway down. It was a hot August night. I took the subway down. I got my duck chow fun that I love so much, the barbecued scallops, white rice, and a vegetable, and I took the subway back up to 44th Street. And I watched a movie at home, and I had a great night. I was not a victim of the evening. I wasn't a victim of loneliness or Shawn or any horrible thing. I found that one day I went to 5 meetings. And by the 5th one, I thought, oh, I wonder what's in store for me. Well, I had the most horrible next day. The most painful next day. But you know what? What I did was I built a foundation that day before to be able to sustain and make wise choices the next day. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I often don't know what's about to follow. Certain decisions, certain things. As I said, as you know, Joan and I don't work together anymore. Joan is not this horrible person. But our trust between each other was broken. And so we couldn't work together anymore. Wendy and John are no longer serving on the Board of Trustees because our trust with each other was broken. And so nobody has been, and I want to be very clear on this because somebody said, can I be thrown out of my church? And the answer is no. Well, I guess maybe if you started throwing things here. You know, you get up and you start, but we've had a few things happen over the years. Nobody's ever been asked to leave this church. As far as I don't plan that anyone ever could be. But we can't maintain a leadership position if the leadership is in conflict and unresolvable conflict. And that's what it came down to. We were out of principle. It wasn't just them. It wasn't just me. We were out of principle. And so therefore, in order to build and to grow as we want to, we must get back into principle. I love this. Charles Fillmore, and it comes from page 14 of Dynamics from Living, our new book, says, we have never thought for ourselves in religion. Consequently, we do not know how to think accurately and consecutively upon any proposition. We have not been trained to we have not been trained to draw conclusions, each for himself, from a universal, pivotal truth. Consequently, we are not competent to pass judgment upon any statement so predicated. Our manner of deciding whether or not certain statements are true or false is to apply the mental bias with which heredity, religion, or social custom has environed us, or else fly to some man-made record as authority. See, when we have opinions, because this is our church, this is our spiritual center, things come up. Things come up in a spiritual center. The point is to go within and ask, how do I see love in this all the time? How do I see love in what is taking place here? How do I see, if I see this and it upsets me, how do I see love in myself? Because that's the frightening thing. Because when things like this happen, it's like a divorce. And for those of us who have the divorce button, that gets pushed. Because many of us come from a divorce background. They say, oh no, two people are parting. Well, there's no parting due to hatred. There's no parting due to that. There's parting because the relationship has come to an end. The relationship as it stood. And if a new relationship is to develop, we must be willing, as Jesus instructed us, as the Bible instructs us, we must be willing to die to ourselves daily. And then it says we must be ready to be born again, or born anew. To be born into a new idea, a new thought, one that takes away our old victim. We must go into principle. And Talks on Truth, Charles Fillmore talks about the mathematician. And he says when a mathematician is having difficulty with a problem, he must go back to the principle. Because otherwise, he's just trying to make it work without principle. And he's wondering, he's just a scientist who is flailing about. And we are spiritual scientists. So a scientist who is just flailing about without going back to the principle of the problem. The principle. The other day I was looking at all the stuff going on here, and I thought, well, I have all the facts. All the facts are on my side. I have them on black and white and paper and everything, all the facts. But where's the truth, Shawn? Because that's the only way I'm ever going to derive peace from any conflict is, what's the truth? What's the truth? What's the truth? So that's where I have to sit down and I have to get quiet and simply say, I'm willing to know the truth about all of it. I am willing to live in peace. I'm willing to live in joy. I'm willing to make apologies where necessary, if that is ever the case. I am willing to set us all free. I'm willing for us all to prosper. And that doesn't mean the few people involved. That means everybody who's involved, which is everybody. If you're a part of Unity Center, then you're involved. But being involved to set yourself free. Ask truth. Truth. Truth is never based on circumstances. Truth is based on love. Truth is based on peace. Truth is based on the principle. Truth is always based on the principle. So we have to go back to the principal's office. When a disturbance happens in a classroom, you got to go to the principal's office. So when a disturbance happens in your mind, you got to go to the principal's office. You got to go within. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, Charles Fillmore, he wrote down some of Charles' quotes, which I just adore. He says, Jesus would not have put forth a doctrine that was not true and based on unchanging law. That's, again, page 186 of Dynamics for Living. He also says, Jesus did not invent the laws or teach totally new principles. They were new to the ones he taught. That's very different. That is very different. See, we're not creating anything new here at Unity. But they're new to us if we haven't heard them before. I remember it was early on in Unity, and I get these ahas. I would hear something and I'd say, how do I know that? I would agree completely with the teacher and have no idea why I agreed, because I knew we didn't talk about that stuff at home. As I was growing up, and I thought, oh, this must be what they call as truth with a capital T. The things you know are true. And you go with that. That's the divine principle. And it says, as Fillmore says, Jesus demonstrated them. What I found out at Unity and my 12-step healing is, as the song says, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. I had to demonstrate them if I wanted to experience them. You demonstrating them wasn't sufficient. You demonstrating the truth was not going to set me free. You having peace was not going to give me peace. You doing it was not ever going to be enough for my satisfaction. So I had to start practicing them myself. As I've said early on in my 12-step healing, I wanted my picture up on the wall with Bill Wilson and Bob Smith. That's where my ego was. I thought, I'm going to learn these steps and I'm going to teach them to people. Wow, they're going to so admire me. Oh, man. But you know what? Here's what happened. In order to get my picture up on that wall, I had to learn the program of recovery. I had to, well, memorizing it wasn't important to me. Reading it and then applying it. You know, let me read this page and let me see how I can apply it today. And now this page and this page and this page. See how I can apply it rather than preach it. Because going into an AA room and just preaching it doesn't mean much. I remember once somebody, the whole, what do you call it, how it works. They got up and recited the entire thing. It's like 3 pages long. And they recited the whole thing. I thought, well, that's a nice party trick, but it doesn't make you sober. As I said, I could have memorized all these pages. I don't bother with memorization anymore. It doesn't matter to me. Am I at peace today? Am I at peace with my thoughts, with my word, with my action, with what I'm seeing? Am I at peace today? And so, am I demonstrating the principles to my satisfaction? And the way I can tell that is, how much do I still want to gossip, criticize, and complain today? That's how at peace I am. And it's a good way to monitor. I guess it's a good barometer. Charles Fillmore was talking, Charles Fillmore, while repudiating fear-based and dualistic concepts, never divorced himself or unity from essence Christianity, saying, unity believes in all the doctrines of Christianity spiritually interpreted. There was the operative, spiritually interpreted. That means it's just because it's written down doesn't mean unto itself it is clear. He says, Fillmore and Katie identified themselves such and verified them experientially. They recognized that physical health, mental health, and spiritual health depended upon moving from fear-based feeling to love-based living. So it seems to me that if I want to do this, I've got to find out what love is. I can't use my childhood definition of love. Usually, my childhood definition of love means being nice. But nice isn't love. Why? Nice is usually just enabling. I had a great-grandmother for that. My grandmother was very nice and very enabling to me. You know, I got away with a lot of stuff. Wasn't that nice of her? You know, I had a partner who was very nice, and I got away with a lot of poor behavior. And so it's not about being nice, and it's not about being a strict disciplinarian. It's about listening and going within and asking, what is the most loving thing to be thought here? What is the most loving thing to be said here and done here? If love were present, what would I do? If I knew without a doubt that love were present, what action would I take here today? What would I say here today? That's how we get through this stuff. And then, Talks on Truth, page 17, Charles says, but principles do not change. Man makes his heaven or his hell, just as he did 2,000 or 2 million years ago. According to principle, thought produces after its kind. Unity's number one principle of the 5, you know, we have our 5 principles, is God is absolute good and everywhere present. Absolute good, not except for some things. God is absolute good and everywhere present. And then this one I enjoyed so much. Talks on Truth, page 111. God never performs miracles if by miracle is meant a departure from universal law. Whatever the prophets did was done by the operation of laws inherent in being and open to the discovery of man. Just as Course in Miracles says laws are natural. Or not laws are natural, miracles are natural. And if miracles aren't present, then something is wrong. So, rather than asking God for a miracle, you begin to expect the best. That's true humility, in case you don't know. Is to expect the best. To expect the absolute best that God has to offer. And Emily Cady in Lessons of Truth says, in some way, which is not easy to put into words, for spiritual laws cannot always be encompassed in words, and yet they are nonetheless infallible, immutable laws that work with precision and certainty. So, as our friend Edwin Gaines says, prosperity is a life that works all the time. Imagine that, a life that works all the time. That is the law of prosperity. She also says that prosperity is, what is it? Work that is so much fun it is more like play. With relationships that are in harmony and work all the time. It is all the cash I can spend. Most of us would settle for that. You know, I'll just settle for that one. You can go the rest. I'll be mad at everybody, but I got cash. But a life that works all the time. A life that works all the time is one where, it's not one where there is no, where you're not trying to avoid discomfort. That's what somebody said, we're trying to avoid discomfort here. And I said, no, we're never trying to avoid discomfort. I understand we are trying to, but that's the wrong way about it. What we want to do is observe our discomfort and know that we are not our discomfort. I am not my fear. I am not my disharmony. I am not the lack I see. I am not. So there we have our denials. Now let's affirm what is true. I am God's beloved child called beautiful, and I am good all the time. Why am I good all the time? Because the first principle, God is absolute good. Always present. The second one, principle is I am good. Can't not be good. That is a divine principle. So in the principle's office, that's where you're going to find the truth of your being. I want to remind you very clearly here. You may go in. You will ask Spirit or your highest self to tell you the truth of your being. I want to assure you right now, you will be told, even though it may seem like you didn't hear anything. Truth doesn't have words. This is where faith is involved. I learned it very clearly, and I believe with all my heart and my soul, if Spirit is asked sincerely, and I want to know, I will be told. I will always be told the truth. So I must rest assured that if I have asked, I have been told. And then I go on about my business. I don't need the words. I don't need any of that. I know that 6 hours later, a situation which would normally confuse me won't. I know that I will intuitively know how to handle things, know how to perceive things, because I am asking Spirit to inform me of the truth of this. I am asking my personal highest consciousness to inform me of what's actually going on here when I'm in principle. When I'm not in principle, I'm saying, tell me what's wrong here. When I'm not in principle, I'm saying, tell me how they're wrong and I'm right. When I'm not in principle. And I can find out exactly why they're wrong and why I'm right. And then I sit in misery and fear and wonder who all's going to be mad at me and who's going to come to attack me next and who's going to do this and who's going to do that and how are we going to lose. But in principle, it's okay. That's what I did. Right now, I want to know the truth. I want to know the absolute truth of all this and go on about my business. The business of forgiving. And it's not forgiving you, it's forgiving myself. When I am forgiven by me, I can't see what's wrong in the world. When I correctly perceive myself, which is what forgiveness is, I can't see anything wrong with you. I can't see. See, that's God's nature. God can't see anything wrong with us, even the people I'm the most mad at in the world. And God can't see anything wrong with me, even if I'm the person you're the most mad at in the world. As I say, how come my enemies have friends? You know, how come Certain politicians have people who like them. What's wrong? I don't get it. How is it? Because I'm not seeing correctly. That's how. It's because I'm not seeing correctly and I'm judging them unworthy of love. Can you imagine that? Think about yourself, not with guilt, but with realization that perhaps there are those that you have deemed unworthy of love. Perhaps you've deemed yourself as unworthy of love. If you've deemed another unworthy of love, you've deemed yourself unworthy of love, and you've tried to go out of principle. Fortunately, divine principle is not only is everyone worthy of love, everyone is love. Everyone is love. Most of all, because it's coming through you, you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Worthy of the love that is. Now ask Spirit, what is love?